Hi everyone, it's Allison from Phronatiska. Thank you so much for coming back for another color along with me. We have been coloring our way through the solar system here. So far we have done the sun. Good grief, I about did it again. We have the sun, not the CERN, the sun in the center of our solar system. We have Mercury, we have Venus, we have Earth and its moon, we have Mars and its moons, and then we passed through the asteroid belt. Then we come out to the gas giants where we have Jupiter and its bunches of moons, and Saturn with its rings and lots more moons, and then we have Uranus and Neptune. So that does it for the planets in our solar system. But there is still some other stuff that's in orbit around the solar system. I'm sure you have heard of Pluto, which astronomers actually now classify as a dwarf planet. And basically all that means is Pluto is still there in outer space. Nothing happened to it. It didn't go anywhere. It is still basically a sphere, which means it's like a ball. It's round. It is in orbit around the sun, so that makes it count as being part of our solar system. However, astronomers have decided that for something to be considered a planet in our solar system, it needs to have pushed all the other stuff in its path. It needs to have cleared its path, either pushed or smashed up all the other stuff in its orbit around the sun out of the way. And that is not the case for Pluto. There's still a whole bunch of other stuff floating around out here in this region where Pluto is, which is called the Kuiper Belt. So there's lots of other rocks and ice and dwarf planets, all sorts of stuff floating around out there. Now, Pluto was named in 1930 by an 11-year-old English girl named Venetia Burney, after the Roman god of the underworld. And tiny as it is, because Pluto is very, very, very small, it actually has 5 moons of its own. So, good for you, Pluto. But one of its moons, the largest one, we'll pick this one right here, Charon, because of the way it orbits around Pluto, the pull of gravity from Pluto on Charon and Charon on Pluto, it's almost like they're sort of dancing with each other. It's like they orbit each other. So it's supposed to be an orbit like that where it just swirls around Pluto, but it kind of slings Pluto around as it does that. So it's almost like they're dancing out in outer space, which is kind of cool there. So we've got Pluto. And then we mentioned there's lots of other stuff out here in this Kuiper Belt region, lots of other dwarf planets. Some of those are planets like Eris, and let's see, I'm not sure what color Eris is. I think most of these things are gray, but we can be colorful. That's all right. We've got Eris, we've got Ceres, we've got, what's another one? Makemake is another dwarf planet, and we've got Haumea is another one as well. And there's lots of other dwarf planets out there in the Kuiper Belt as well. Now, back to Pluto, though. We know that it is in orbit around the sun. While most of these things in our solar system have relatively, forgive my bad circles here, but most of the orbits are relatively circular, where they don't squish too much one way or the other. Pluto's orbit is different from the other things in the solar system because it has an elliptical orbit. Imagine like the shape of an egg where you have a circle and then you just squish it on 2 sides. So you've got, it's still kind of round, but it's just narrower at one part. So because of that elliptical orbit, Pluto actually passes inside of Neptune's orbit for part of its trip around the sun. So for a little while, Pluto is actually closer to the sun than Neptune is. That's pretty weird there. So we've got Pluto out there in the Kuiper Belt with all of the other dwarf planets out there, and then there's lots of asteroids, all sorts of stuff floating around out there. And then if we go even further out now, this out here. The Kuiper belt starts to mark the beginning of the end of our solar system. That is pretty much the edge of the solar system, and then you go way far out. And when I say way far out, I mean like 5,000 to 100,000 astronomical units away is something called the Oort Cloud. It takes 1.6 light years to reach it. Astronomers haven't even seen it yet, and that's basically like this giant bubble way outside the edges of my paper. I can't do that to scale here. Of course, this is not to scale either, but it's way beyond anything. Just imagine this giant bubble way outside the edges of the solar system. And the Oort Cloud is where comets actually come from. So if you've ever heard of Halley's Comet or any of the others, that's where the comets come from. It's way out on the very edges, that bubble surrounding our solar system, the Oort Cloud there. Now, if you want to see some nice up-close pictures of Pluto, we actually were fortunate enough to get some of those back in 2012 when Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 passed by. They were launched from Earth back in 1977. They finally flew past around 2012. They flew past Pluto, and they're on their way out to the furthest reaches of the solar system, out to see what's out there in the Oort Cloud, and it's going to take them. All right, so it took from 1977 to about 2012 to reach Pluto. It's going to take them thousands of years to reach the Oort Cloud. That gives you an idea of how far away it is. So that pretty much wraps it up for our trip through the solar system. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave those in the comment section of this video. Thank you so much for sticking around. One other thing, if you are interested, if you don't want to just draw your own thing, NASA also has some pretty cool coloring sheets that they have made as well that you can get on their website, spaceplace.nasa.gov. We've got some nice pictures like Mercury, Venus, all the planets in the solar system. They have lots of other nice ones from different space missions and things like that. So if you want to check those out, at spaceplace.nasa.gov. So any other questions or comments, please feel free to leave those in the comment section of this video. And thank you so much for your time.